Well, I want you to know, don't touch that down. I've got the coffee talk. It's coming up for you right here on WGBO 1350. WGBO 1350.com. Pleasant good morning to you.
Well, good morning, Bishop. How are you?
Well, every day is a good day, Bishop, and we're here for another one. Survive and move on.
Yes, indeed. And good morning, everyone. And every day we rise is a great day to be alive, as the Colonel mentions. And welcome to the Seven Cities Forums of Hampton Roads presents Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And we're here with our host, Leo Drake-Stith and Thomas the Colonel Chapman. Good morning, host.
Good morning.
Good morning, Slim.
Of course, yours truly, James Slim Overton. And let's give, and we have a special guest with us this morning, Dr. Frank Roberts, and let's give him a special Portsmouth Coffee Talk salute here.
Cheers.
You have to get your cup, Dr. Roberts.
I've got it right here.
Yes, indeed. And let me give a shout out right here real quick to my brother, Ronald Goodrich, who's watching out of Pennsylvania. Good morning, Ronald. But anyway, I took a special license on that one.
That's
to
okay.
give a shout out to my brother there. Anyway, we have a special guest this morning, Dr. Frank Roberts. He's a former United States Army, former doctor, and graduate of Western Branch High School. Did his pre-med at Virginia State University. Studied medicine at Eastern Virginia Medical School, then studied internal medicine at Alderman Hospital internship and studied OB/GYN residency at Brooke Army Medical Center. And welcome, doctor. Thanks for getting up early and joining us.
It's a struggle, but I'm here. Thank you.
You got that coffee on Coffee Talk. You're going to
That's
be
right.
fine.
That's right.
We appreciate you being here this morning. And Colonel, if you'd like to start out the discussion with our doctor this morning, please do.
I sure will. It's a great honor to talk to my friend. And I also call him my brother because we go, as they say in the music industry and in the church, we go way back. Oh yes. So Frankie, could you talk about how did you get there? How did you become a doctor, and what was your path to get to where you are today?
Well, as you know, Thomas, during high school, we pretty much didn't do as much as we probably should. So I was a fairly average student. I did, what I needed to do, but there were certain courses that, sparked my interest. I was into music all through high school, middle school. And so I felt that was my main path in life. And so actually, once I graduated from high school, did fairly well, despite all the things that we went through. Those are the years where we were bused and, had to sort of do our best to fit in and mold ourselves. So then I graduated, went to Virginia State as a music major in 74. Thomas and I graduated together in 74 from Western Branch. And then after a year of music, I realized I wasn't that good. And I would never be as good as a lot of the other freshmen, even in that study. And then some of the singers who were graduating, they were getting jobs as middle school teachers, and they were outstanding musicians who were playing around the country with different artists. And I said, well, I think I need to choose another path. So I just stayed out the next year and played in a few bands, and actually went on Soul Train that year. Remember, I wanted a contest at the Scope, and so I could dance pretty well. So music was still involved in my life. And around that January, my mother said, well, you need to get out here and get a real job. And so she took me down to Chesapeake General and actually made me fill out a application, and the hospital was just opening. So I got a job in the X-ray department as a transport aide did some orderly responsibilities by prepping patients for surgeries the next morning and shaving men and things like that. We used to shave everybody back then. And I looked around at the hospital, everybody's jobs, and got in with some of the doctors because it was so small, got to eat lunch with them, and the administrator, Mr. Buckley at that time. And I realized, I want to drive those cars, and I want to, fit into this lifestyle. So I had a young lady who was a girlfriend who played in the band, and she said, well, I'm going to Virginia State as well in the fall. And I said, well, might as well try this at Virginia State again, and enrolled. And after first, she broke up with me. After the first 2 weeks there, she was the star majorette, of course, got a lot of attention. And I said, well, I guess I should just study. And sure enough, grades were really well. And beyond that, it was straight A's after that, and got into medical school. And initially, I wanted to do OBGYN because I felt that was, what I enjoyed. But then thought about internal medicine and radiology as well. Finished at Eastern Virginia Medical School in 1983, and then went on and did a year of internal medicine in Ohio, Canton, Ohio, at Altman Hospital, and Timken Mercy. It was a sister hospital. And, I didn't enjoy seeing people die, and they didn't have a pediatric program, and I had to code a little girl. She had a cardiac arrest and actually died, and I was the lead on that code. And my daughter was the same age, 18 months at the time, and that's when I chose. I said, that's not for me, and planned my OBGYN career after that. So instead of doing OBGYN right away, I went into the Army. While I was in the Army, they had paid my way through medical school, and wound up doing what we call general medical officer, and wound up going over to volunteer and go to Korea along the DMZ at Camp Casey. Did some time at Camp Edwards as well. And, it's a pretty hardship tour for a year, and but it taught me a lot about the Army. And because of my volunteering there, I was always lifted to be attached to the units that didn't have physicians to do stints for the Army. Some of them, as Tommy knows, we can't really talk about. But then went to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, and where I started my residency in OBGYN in 1986 and finished in 89. And from there, went to Fort Belvoir, did my 3 years, went over to Desert Storm. And interesting, during all that time, Ralph Northam did the same stints that I did. He was in Desert Storm the same time.
Wow.
We were at Brooke Army Medical Center the same time, Eastern Virginia Medical School the same time. So, we sort of, wandered a little bit through all the deliveries. He was a pediatrician during those times. So, and since then, I've been joined the practice here in Virginia Beach, Dr. Turner Valentine Spruill. And we, through the years, Dr. Turner initially, then Dr. Valentine, we kind of split up. Dr. Turner retired. Dr. Spruill and I were together until 2019, when we decided it was time, because we were a small group, and the insurance companies were not doing good things for small groups, and the big group sort of gobbled us up. Been enjoying retirement since.
Frankie.
Yes. Frank.
Okay, yeah, Frank. Yeah, hard habits are hard to die.
I know.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting. See, we have a lot of aspiring kids that graduate from our universities and colleges across the country, and they say, I want to go to medical school. And then, but one of the impediments is that, how do I pay for it? And could you explain just a little touch on that HPSP, or Health Professionals Scholarship, that you got to pay your way through, and what that entailed?
Okay.
Just real briefly.
Yeah, so I don't know if they still have the same exact programs, but back then, basically, you applied for just like you would apply for college. You applied for the scholarship, and they interviewed you. They called you, you had to write essays to say why you wanted to be in the Army, and you could include things like you want to serve your country. It's not just about you want to get your school paid for, and it was great because during medical school, not only did they pay for the tuition and your books, which a medical textbook can be during that time up to $200-300. Today, I'm sure it's probably a lot more, or maybe it's not. Maybe everything's digital. But they also gave you a stipend, a monthly stipend, back then about $500 a month, which paid for rent back then. So he did that. During medical school, you had to do 1 or 2 active duty stints for 30 days. And you did some of your clerkships, we called it then, where you were rotate through a certain profession. And I did one in San Antonio and the other just as training as a basic course. And you were lieutenant, second lieutenant first, and then first lieutenant, and for a brief period of time. And then upon graduation, you were commissioned as a captain coming out. So you started out pretty much ahead of the game, and it was great.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because I talked to a lot of kids across the country and talked to them about the opportunities, and that stipend that was $300 back then is well over $2,000 now a month.
Wow. Nice.
And the other thing too is that medical school books and tuition and all that stuff is taken care of. And when I talk to some of these kids, it boils down to, the anti-military kind of thing, and they would almost rather sit home and not go than take advantage of those opportunities. And there's also a program called UShoes, Uniform Services University, I know that you're aware of, that the military, all 3 services, has their own medical school that these kids could go to. And I've had a discussion with within the ranks of the recruiting command to try to get our numbers up, people that look like us to go to these programs. They apply for that same health professional scholarship and also to go to our medical school. But it's just hard breaking through the fog of the military. And, can you say that all your time was not carrying a gun and trying to shoot people as a doctor? Wasn't there a difference?
Oh, definitely. However, I did enjoy that part. So, and I actually, things have changed since I did all of that. And during my time at Belvoir, I actually had to go to Walter Reed and the Pentagon several times. I was on the HPSP committee, and I did a lot of reviewing of the applications. And I was, I'd say close to 50% were from people of color, so I don't know whether things have changed. This was back from 89 to 91, but we accepted quite a few people of all backgrounds.
Yes.
But the main thing they had to do was to emphasize that they wanted to serve their country, or they wanted to follow the footsteps of their parents or some other relative that they aspired to be like. So, and I enjoyed my time in the Army. It was a lot of work, a lot of, exercise, but I attribute my experience with the Army as being in great shape today. I mean, when you were deployed,
yeah,
all you did was exercise, or when you were waiting, or you were, you just stayed pretty fit, and that carries on for the rest of your life. And no college loans. I mean,
yes.
I paid my way through college semester by semester, and they paid my way through medical school. Not only the books and that are supplied, and the tuition and the stipend, but they bought all my medical equipment initially. first stethoscope, blood pressure cuff, otoscope, all those things were all provided by the Army.
You know, and before I let my other two hosts get in here, I guess one of the topic of the day is what has killed 660,000 souls across this country, and those souls aren't Republicans, Democrats, and independents, but they are people that I think that from some estimates, 3/4 of them, and you can do the math, should be here today if we had leadership in the previous administration. And that's my political spin from that. Could you give us a little rundown on or talk about this COVID-19 and maybe a little spin off in the new variant?
Okay, so as I talk to Thomas, I keep calling him his brother because his brother talks as much as he does. so that, I told him I'm an OBGYN doc and actually retired. So my experience with COVID, of course, is the same experience you guys have. I don't have, any expertise. I'm not an infectious disease doc or epidemiologist or, what have you. A reporter or do things like you guys. So, but I feel the same way. I feel that, it was handled wrong initially with so much misinformation. And, people have to understand too, that anything in life that's new to you, it's a learning curve. This was a novel virus that the human body has never seen before. And so that, there were viruses like it, there were other coronaviruses, but, this was totally different. And your immune system didn't have a template to say, okay, this virus, I know what it looks like, I can go attack it. So early on, if those things were, set in the minds of people who are such avid opponents right now with the vaccine and masking, I think that if things were clear and people were informed, we're learning about this as we go, and we're going to adapt to it, and things are going to change. Our instructions are going to change. Then I think we would be in a better place right now, especially if people are masked and on social distancing. And once the vaccines were available, we could have gotten up to a 70% vaccine rate initially. I think that we will be well beyond this right now, and then provided for other countries after we had successful vaccination programs, because of course you can't stop international travel and people who don't have access to vaccines coming in and out of the country as well. So that's my general take on it. And, I know a little bit of the science behind it, so I'll entertain some questions. But again, remember, I am not an expert on this.
Yeah. But I'm gonna add one commercial part, because we do have bills to pay, and so for those folks that are out there in electron world, what I call, if you'd like to hear more information about these topics and the topics that we bring to you, and we bring these great topics and great guests to you, you can send a donation or try to partner with us at Portsmouth Coffee Talk LLC at P.O. Box 7664, Portsmouth, Virginia 23707. And we'd love to hear from you, and just give us a shout out. And you can also send us a email, a shout out at portsmouthcoffeetalk@yahoo.com. And one last thing is you hit a piece, and this is another political subject here about stopping the virus. It has always been this administration and most credible scientists are saying we'll never stop this virus if we don't vaccinate the world. And so I think you hit it as trying to get the rest of the world vaccinated, so we don't get these new variants popping up and be back in the same boat that we are in now. And so you have to get by and do your own research, and listen. Turn off Fox and listen to credible people and go on from there. So I'll let my other two guests get in here right quick.
Okay, I'll just after the Colonel show, I will I will come in now and ask, Dr. Frank, and of course he corrected me on that Frankie thing too. That's what I had in front of me at the time, but I understand. You know, we talked about that. I understand.
Yeah.
But Doctor, you know, and you're responsible. You say you're not an expert in infectious disease, but you are responsible for bringing, assisting life to come into this world, and you definitely want that life that you bring in to follow a natural course of living. You know, and I think an unnatural course is being affected by the virus and untimely dying. But I want to, you know, in your area, you know, it's still a lot of parents these days that are against any kind of vaccines for their children. And when we were coming up, you know, the vaccine for polio and a lot of different things, people didn't give it a second thought. So we have these parents out here that don't want to vaccinate their children with the regular vaccinations that are out there available, and it's their choice. And then you, of course, they're not going to go along with the vaccinations for the COVID, even for themselves. What do you tell parents that have that kind of reasoning or feel that way about their children once they are getting into an age where the vaccination is suggested, but they don't want to do it? What advice do you give to them, or what do you say to them that, you know, that feel that way?
Well, as Tommy said, well, first, I don't practice anymore, so you know I don't have the luxury of being in an exam room, which usually carried a lot of weight when you were providing advice and counseling to patients, the mothers, and giving them your opinion about different things that their children might see. I'm not a pediatrician, so I don't really care for the children, or wasn't a pediatrician. And so I didn't really, you know, encourage vaccines and things like that for those kids. But, you know, a lot of the patients that I have, we had a large population of patients that were nurses and doctors and things like that, because we were, my partner and I, Dr. Squirrel, we were old school, they called us, and we did things almost like parents, you know, or fathers, or, you know, some, at our age, we were grandfathers. So we tended to provide a lot of advice about things outside of the medical realm as well. So in that light, I still do that today when people, you know, with friends that from the hospital with their children, you know, they call and they ask me my opinion. What do you think about the vaccine? So those that ask questions and want advice, you know, they're approachable and you can sway their mind. But unfortunately, as Tommy said again, you have the Fox group who, unfortunately, the majority of those, you know, it's like pulling teeth. You're not going to be able to convince them. It's more political, politicized. They are going to disagree with you no matter how much expertise you have. If I was a pediatrician, you know, recommending those things, they would say, no, you're wrong. You know, and I've been told that. I've been told, as a young lady a couple of weeks ago online, I posted vaccines, not getting the vaccine. I can't remember exactly what it was. It's just, you're killing yourself. It's, you know, COVID kills people. And she called me a liar. This is a young lady, I don't want to say her name, but she was a surgical tech, not diminishing that title, but you know, she's not a doctor, she's not a research scientist. She swore out I was a liar, and how dare I, as a physician, put this information out? You know, and you know, of course, all the other folks who responded to that post jumped on her. So immediately, Facebook took down her post and another young lady that were going at it. But I find that there's no way to sway those minds that are
Mhm.
so locked into that myth and that all
Well,
the lies.
let me bring it closer to your expertise then. So how important is it for pregnant women to get the vaccine?
Very important. Initially it was a learning curve, and it was saying, everyone, the experts said, hold off for a minute, the first month or so. And as we got more information and more data in, we encouraged pregnant women to get it, because just like other people who may have cancer or chronic illness, their immune systems are deficient. Pregnancy is a state of being immunocompromised, meaning you can't, when exposed to a cold, exposed to anything, you're more at risk of getting sicker and dying. Chickenpox is a perfect example. If you get pregnant when you have chickenpox and you get pneumonia from the varicella virus, your mortality rate is extremely high. So all those viruses will affect a pregnant woman more, and they found no adverse effects more than anybody else in the population from receiving the vaccine pregnant.
Dr. Roberts, what
Yes,
do you
ma'am.
think contributes to those individuals who are in the medical field, who are doctors, who are nurses, who are, working daily with these people with COVID viruses, but yet they refuse to take the vaccine?
So again, I think it's, as Tommy said, the media. When we did the polio vaccine back when we were, and I remember standing in line when I was 4 or 5 years old when it first came into our community in Cavalier Manor. I was living there then at Cavalier Manor Elementary. There was a drive, and I was standing in line and receiving that. And there was no hesitancy. People stood up and did what they needed to do, and to fight these things. But now, because everything is on TV, everything's on the social media, things are spread, lies are spread, and misinformation more efficiently. And then my personal take, and I'm hesitant to say it online, but I think there's a lot of mental illness. And I really do. I think there's a national mental illness. It's like a cult almost that just like the Jonestown.
Yeah.
You just get mentally brainwashed by people, and no matter what issue comes up, whether it's masks, vaccines, Trump, it's just, I don't know. I can't explain that. That's beyond my expertise again.
Yes, it's an ongoing battle. The truth versus what Foxism or Trumpism, and the truth versus untruth. But it's interesting you talk about, and I'll go back to your expertise. Yes, could you say something about the disparities in healthcare, and especially in when we talk about OBGYN care, and us coming through in the different populations, talk about disparities in health.
Yeah. So, every other disease we talk about, when you look at disparities in health, as you know, and I'm sure all of you have read, there's a drive to decrease those disparities, because there's always been that disparity in the Black community and indigent population as well, also lower socioeconomic groups. And all of us in life have biases. We look at people, and I'm guilty of it. I don't like mean people, let me put it like that. So you come into my office and you're cursing at staff, and I'm prone to not provide as efficient care to you. So if you look, and everybody, I'm not saying it's right, but everybody, when you step into that doctor's office, initial, just like any other profession, you're going to have your initial intersectionalism, where you just start categorizing people in different groups. This person's, first off, physical appearance, they're Black or they're white, or they're, you're trying to figure out what they are. If they're mixed these days, you can't tell who's who. And then, you know, what, are they wealthy? Do they have cash? Are they, yeah, there's hundreds of categories people put people in. So that I think that's unfortunately, if you practice looking at a person whole, you know, as a whole, you know, just saying, okay, I'm gonna give this person the benefit of the doubt, that'll help. And I think that's what all the institutions are working towards, just trying to eliminate, you know, trying to initially putting somebody into a box where you have already got preconceived ideas and perceptions about that person based on your growing up and your teaching, what you become. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because the pediatrician thing with the kids and the vaccines, the kids who are getting sickest right now and dying from it are mostly kids that are, you know, kids of color. The Hispanic community actually has the highest rate of kids dying and getting sick and admitted to the hospitals. So, you know, it's not just Black folks, it's, you know, like I said, the indigent folks who've been beat up more than anybody else probably in this country, and looking at the land that's been taken. But yeah, as far as healthcare disparities, that's in OBGYN, Black women are more prone to die in labor than whites. Cancer treatments, the patients we see with gynecologic cancers and take care of, you know, they're the same thing. But so I don't have an answer to fixing it. It's a long-term battle, and you know, people talk about it in medical journals. I mean, every one I receive, there's always an article in there about how are we going to fix this? How are we doing? What steps we're taking to decrease these differences that we see.
Hey, I want to step in and say we're coming about 5 minutes. We'll be leaving the radio, but we will continue on Facebook Live, and so we won't stop the conversation. I'll say my thanks to all the listeners on WGPL 1350 AM on the radio dial. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. But I want to continue, Doctor, and we will talk more about the COVID-19 vaccinations, but you brought up the point. First of all, you're one of the youngest retired doctors I've seen. Most of them hang around for a long time, you know. But
that's all I've got to say. Hey,
Yeah.
Army, man, Army.
I heard about, you know, operating a smaller medical office, and especially people like myself were used to the single office doctors, and with the medical insurance and everything like that, a small office is kind of hard, and you get now what younger people might be used to as the norm. You get these huge offices, and in my opinion, and talking to people my age, we just don't get the same kind of treatment. It's almost like a cattle call. You go in there, it's lined up with people, and it takes a month to get, or longer, to even get appointments when things come up with you. And I'm everybody knows I'm a heart transplant patient, and things come up, and I don't take things for granted. I make appointments right away if it's not heart related. My heart people will see me just like that. But if it's something else, you know, I might have to wait 2 or 3 weeks or longer to see. And if you go to the emergency room, they'll look at it and treat it and tell you to see your doctor. So then you still have to, but you know, that change where the norm is the big offices, and where you have a lot of doctors, and even and not putting it down with Eastern Virginia Medical School. If you go into one of those places, you end up not having the same doctor all the time. You get the residents in there, and you might go in there and you have Dr. So-and-so, and your next visit, you say, well, I'll see you, I'm moving on. Of course, you have the attendants there. But do you think that, how has that change affect, because especially in the African American community, we're used to having that personal relationship with our doctors, and it's kind of hard to do that now. I guess medicines or the medical field has evolved so much. You might even see the nurse practitioner, which is nothing wrong with that. I think that's a good thing because of so many patients. You need to have, you know, somebody else in there. But how do you think that's affecting the African American communities with the difference with these large offices where we don't get what we're used to, that personalized, where we will come in there and call you doctor. I might come in there and call you, hey, Frank, you know, and you treat me, you know. Is this something that's affecting us, or it's just something, it's the norm now? We just have to get used to it. This is the way it is.
Unfortunately, I agree. It's the probably the norm now. You'll find those rare individuals and that will spend more time with you, you know, and provide. There's some smaller groups too. The further you get away from, you know, the large conglomerates like Centera Heart Hospital, which is a great hospital. I mean, I think they provide excellent care. I can't mention some people that I know that went through the same things, so some of the same things you did. So I spent some time with, you know, hanging out with them there. But whenever you involved with the teaching hospital, you're always going to get the different groups in you, the residents, the fellows, which are, you know, they're just on the brink of becoming the heart surgeon or the physician that's going to, that they're being trained to be. They're about to start their own practices. So then you have the medical students as well. And sometimes you even might have a pre-med student, and you have nursing students. You have all kinds of students in all the different departments that will be providing care for you. So the further you get away from an institution like that, especially small towns, you'll see some, you know, small town doctors like that. But here in Hampton Roads, that's going to be far and in between. Pretty much everything's big group. The practice I go to for my care is a fairly large group, and I actually I see the nurse practitioner there only because the physician I had, you know, they gave me a little more respect, I guess, because I was a physician, but she would talk to me a little bit more about things, I'm sure, than her other patients, but she left to go to the VA hospital. So yeah, on your point with the healthcare disparities with that, I think everybody's seeing that, not just the Black community with the way the system has developed, but yes, you are going to see more of the Black community, the indigent community, the poor, Hispanic community. You're going to see healthcare disparities increase because, you know, I think it's more the lower socioeconomic part of it, that you don't have the same resources to get that premium care that, you know, people who have great insurance have as well. So I would love to go back to those days where you had that one-on-one at that time. And the insurance companies actually, they race you through, they force the physicians actually to see, they get paid less per patient than they used to. So they have to see more in order to pay the bills and pay their staff and things like that. So there are a lot of factors involved. I mean, we could go on and on and on about that, but I don't think it'll ever go back to the days where, you know, I used to have my doctor come to the house, you know, when I was growing up. Dr. Adams.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all know Dr. Adams.
Dr. Adams, that's good.
Dr. Adams from Virginia Union. But anyway, one more thing, and I like the fact that you brought up the point of respect. I also think it's up to us to have respect for those offices we go in, because even those doctors or those healthcare professionals we deal with are human. And, you know, if you want respect from them and the best care, you have to treat them with respect. And a lot of people, I've been in office and a lot of people come in there, the least little thing goes wrong, they just go off and then go back to inspect.
I tell the patients all the time, it's funny because when they say, oh man, you guys are so great, you know, I love to care with you. I said, that's because you're a pleasant person. If you're pleasant, you're going to be treated. If you come in there, you know, fussing and arguing, you know, tit for tat, you know, you just kind of slowly, you still try to be, you know, try to be pleasant to you, but you definitely will not receive the same TLC.
Yeah, just the other day when I was, and I'm sorry, Leah, just the other day when I was leaving my doctor's office, I was checking out, getting the next appointment, and the doctor came back out to me and said, man, I really enjoyed, you know, helping you today, because it was such a pleasant, I don't know what he had been through, but it was such a pleasant interaction. He had to come back out there and say something to me. So in those situations, I can expect, you know, to be treated well and get, you know, the best treatment that they can offer because of the way I presented myself. And that's important. We have to keep that in mind when we put ourselves in the hands of others.
That attitude represents probably less than 20% of the patients you see.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. But you know what? A lot of it boils down to the what I call the assembly line of healthcare. And being a provider, it's almost as if, depending on your specialty, is that it's the same of being a professional working at the GM or Ford plant. I've got to crank out these patients. I only get to 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on the institution, that I have to go through this problem list, go through the medications and all the other things that are required for me. And then basically it boils down to, I've got to make a decision. I got basically at 20 minutes, it's boiled down to 5 to 7 minutes that I can really talk to the patient. And so I have to beat through the noise and to do this. So I think the best technique is when I go to see somebody, and I also try to see a nurse practitioner, and but if I'm seeing a doctor, I come in with my list. I know what I want. I know what I need, and then I spit it out right in there, saying this is what I need. I need these renewed, and this was what's wrong, and we're gonna do this. We cut right through the chase, but tell me like it is, because I've already reviewed my labs and da 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 da. And so I'm one of those informed consumers.
Unfortunately, that represents another problem patient too. The one that comes in with their own diagnosis and
Yes.
They're, you know, unfortunately, you know, I respect, you know, and stuff, but there are a lot of other things that sometimes come into play when you're trying to make a diagnosis. And my nurse practitioner, I put it in, she'll ask me, what do I think? I said, you tell me what you want to do, and I'll let you know if I agree. But you're right. My daughter, she's in the movie industry. She was a theater major at Virginia Tech, but she is in Chicago. She comes home this week after 6 months stint with 50 Cent up there.
Okay.
But she was going to go into medicine at first. And so when she was in college, she was at the veterinarian school. She got admitted for that, and she changed halfway through. But she came going rounds with me, and in the office, she always laughed. And at the end of the day, she said, another day on the vaginal assembly line. And she said, you just can't go from one to another, you know, spectrum, open it up.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so true. It's this assembly line.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've always enjoyed the banter too, and that's because I like to talk, as you've said, and, and so I like to debate my healthcare.
A great gift.
Yeah, and Lord, I can debate till the cows come home. But Lee, I think you were trying to get in there.
I think I lost my thought after the banter here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But go on. It will come back. Believe me. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, let me take us back to the vaccines. You know, we have a lot of our or the adults that have children. don't believe in the vaccines. I don't know. It's kind of generational or something like that. And a lot of it might have to do with the misleading media. But a lot of it has to do with, I think even before the COVID-19 came, a lot of the younger people felt like the vaccines, what they learned historically, the vaccines weren't safe or something like that. But how do we further convince our younger people that have older parents that it's important, older parents and even younger children that can't get vaccines? And we might have covered this a little bit, but coming from medical professionals like yourself and the Colonel, how do we really sit down and convince, our younger kids or children how important it is to sustain the generations that we need to carry on by just simply taking the vaccine and trusting in the science?
Well, yeah, that's a difficult question, and I don't have an answer for that other than, I can tell you how it got here. The vaccines we had when we were growing up were far and in between, but I'm sure you've had, I don't know how many kids you guys have, but babies today, the vaccine schedule is just crazy. So when I hear about the vaccines that the babies especially, I've got a couple of friends who have adult children who have now their babies, and the vaccines that they're getting, they're just, there's a lot of vaccines. So they are being bombarded with all these vaccines, and so that, which I think is a good thing, but you can see where some of the skepticism can come into play, especially I think that within the Black community, kids read more now and they know about the Tuskegee experiments with syphilis. And so they distrust government, sit in my son's a barber, sit in his barber shop and listening to those guys, I don't ever say anything because there's no way I try. I may say something just to interject a fact or, something scientific about it that it might click in their heads, but they're just convinced that the government is not to be trusted. So, and, so there are some things, some truth in that too, but I do believe in the science, and I do believe in the information that's being put out, especially in this administration, because it's, more believable in the previous administration, where you were getting the people, saying, some individuals saying, inject bleach into folks, things like that.
Yeah.
So, and the bad part about that is, I think we as a Black community have one of the lowest rates of vaccination with COVID than the rest of the group. So, we have to work harder at, doing that. All my kids, my family, they're vaccinated, but there are one or two individuals in my family. I don't want to put his name out there, but he doesn't want to get it. And, he thinks about it now and then when we talk, but it's an ongoing battle.
Let me be specific. We had a show a while back on autism, and some of the people out here are saying that autism is
Result of the vaccination.
Vaccination caused. And our show on autism really broadened my knowledge on that particular on autism in general, because it didn't dispel that certain vaccinations could lead to a child being autistic, but it didn't prove that either. I guess in a very small percentage, they're still studying that. But where are we scientifically with that? And as far as, the people that really believe they want to stay away from vaccination because they don't want to wait and then find out that their child is autistic because of it.
Well, those are the things we were talking about before. There are scientists out there who, just like the rest of the population, they get it in their mind that this is a problem, and they're anti-vaxxers. So those scientists, they do their studies, and almost any study can be skewed, and you do it to prove your point. So you do things like debate how you interpret the data and how you do it. There are all kinds of statistical methods that you can skew the data, and they push. But the best articles out there, the best science out there is that there's no relation to it. That's been proven over and over. But you're always going to get these scientists out there that, just like global warming, 90+% of scientists and the meteorologists say humans are contributing to it with the carbon dioxide. But you're going to get a handful of scientists who present data and studies and do their own things to try to disprove that. And it's, you look deep into it, and they're being paid by political operatives that are, trying to support the oil company. And that's a whole nother discussion, but you have the same thing in the medical field or any other discipline. You're going to have people who, their kid may have had autism, and they want to blame someone. They want to not just blame them, they may want to get money from them. So they're doing these studies and doing, their whole goal and mission in life is to get online and present these false accusations and information.
That's why it was so simple back in the day when they had the encyclopedias. You had to rely on your own research and looking several different sources to prove your point. If you were a debater or you were doing a report that you had to stand in front of class and give that report, and it was basically dependent on your actual research on that report. And then so with social media, we kind of got away from that. We just believe anything we see. Like you say, a lot of those cases come back to a political reason,
or personal, like somebody's kid. They're a scientist, their kid gets autism.
Right. Leah, has it?
But getting back to this COVID deal, to hear young people saying that they're doing their research, and their research, of course, is on Facebook, so or on social media. So I'm thankful that the Biden administration now is working to get them to take down all of this false information that there is on social media that's keeping people from getting vaccinated. But also young people are feeling that if you've been vaccinated twice and you get COVID, why should I take the vaccination? Your thoughts.
So yeah, if you look at the human body, there's 100 trillion cells there. The majority of them actually bacteria, viruses, fungi. So by weight, they make up a small percent, but the majority of the cells there aren't even human cells. So your body's constantly being exposed to viruses and things like that. So the COVID virus, just like any other virus, just because it's there, doesn't mean it's going to get you sick. And if people are coughing on you and they have the virus, or they're breathing it out in the air, and it's going to be on your membranes and your nose and everywhere. Now, can it get into your cells and reproduce and make other viruses, little baby viruses? Now, that's what the vaccine is there for. The vaccine is, you may get the infection, you may get some of your cells infected and stuff. It's to decrease the hospitalizations and death. So, and the vaccines aren't 100% as well. The mRNA vaccines are 90 to 95% effective. The Delta variant is even less. It's, some studies down to 66% or so. So that's with the 2 doses. With 1 dose, it's only 40% or so. So your whole goal is to prevent severe illness, hospitalizations, and death. And if we can do that, and the main thing we were trying to do is to decrease the mutations. So the fewer petri dishes we have out there that allow this bacteria to get into the cells, to figure out ways, okay, how can I make myself stronger? These viruses they can't live by themselves. They're viral particles. They're not bacteria. Bacteria can reproduce, on surfaces and things like that. These viruses need your cells to reproduce. They have to get into those cells, use your RNA in this case, and some of the viruses are DNA viruses. They get into your nucleus and use your DNA to make their baby viruses, and then they pop out of the cell. One cell can produce millions of viral particles and stuff, and then they go on and infect the other cells. So the vaccine is there to either stop, slow that reproduction down, because every time those viruses leave the cell, those cells die, and we're talking about millions of cells, that do it at a time.
Thank
Does
you.
that
makes sense to me.
Yeah, that was a very simplistic argument, but it explains exactly what's going on for those who are that needed that discussion. But I'd like to get back to when you talked about the Tuskegee
Airman.
not the airman, but the experiment. That half the folks, half of the folks don't know, haven't read exactly what it was. They say, well, the government was giving Black folks syphilis, but that was a study that withheld treatment,
right,
and studied it on the other end, which is entirely different from what we're discussing today. Because I had this same discussion this weekend when I went out to a gravesite where they buried a friend of mine that died of COVID. And I was watching him being put in the ground, and the funeral guy was the only, and myself were the only people out there. And he mentioned the Tuskegee experiment, and I had to break it down to him. And then the light bulb went on. And so that's the same thing with the most of these kids out here. But I would tell you, when you look at what's going to break this, force people to get the vaccines, when private industry and those jobs start requiring it. I applaud Delta Airlines that have stuck a $200 a month premium on the non-vaccinated.
Nice. And
when the life insurance company saying, I'm not going to pay your death benefit if you're non-vaccinated, and when you're told you can't come back to work in my establishment because you're spreading this virus because you're non-vaccinated, and in a state like state of Virginia, when you have a right to work, I fire you because you're non-vaccinated after such and such date. That is going to change things.
Right. I think that, you got a point there. I think that your health insurance too.
Yes.
If you're not vaccinated, maybe your premiums might go up, just like if you smoke. And so that I applaud Centera. I applaud, the Pentagon, that all the military have to be vaccinated. And I think as we get more, Walmart, Amazon, all those corporations are starting to create mandates as well. I think if we get those numbers up, we'll do fine. The dilemma is with the return to school. You have kids under 12 who can't be vaccinated yet, but they can, hopefully some of the schools that don't want to have mask mandates around the country, you're going to see a surge in cases because those kids may not get as sick or die at the same rate as adults do, but they're going to be bringing home to the adults, to the grandparents, to the people, other kids who might be immunocompromised. So unfortunately, you're going to have through the next few months, a continuation of the surge and a continuation of the cases. So I do applaud that these big companies, they're wise. They know they want to keep their profits coming, so they're mandating their employees either get the vaccine or be tested often. And another point, I really think that we need to do more with the antibody testing as well, because if you have the antibodies from naturally getting it and you recover, maybe test to see if you're immune on a regular basis, because we don't know the long-term immunity from those, just like we don't know exactly the long-term immunity from the vaccines, which is why we're requesting that people get the boosters. And as of September 20th, I'll be calling Thomas again to get in with his wife.
Yes. We'll be right in the front of the line.
Yeah, I got my booster the other day. So
nice.
in the situation I'm in. So was kind of down a few days, but to me, that's a small price to pay for being protected, especially in my position, but anyway, I wanted to say a lot of us are also sending mixed messages out to, everybody wants to be out and about, and that's fine. But you're seeing all these activities going on, and that's fine too. But people out unmasked and not protecting. And you see a lot of people with the mask on that are out there as well. And I think it's an unfair balance to have an outside event and you have some people masked and the rest of them unmasked, like, nothing is, we don't have a Delta variant going on. They're not watching kids die. They're not watching people that weren't normally considered in that risk factor dying. But we are, in certain areas, until it hits, this area here, until it really hits us, we still have a lot of activities going on outside, and I see it, people unmasked, and that's a problem. Why we have to wait until it really hits us? Because, and Doc, how bad can this thing get if we ignore it completely?
Well, unfortunately, we're not ignoring it completely. And those are, we have the soldiers out there and, that are out there wearing the masks, distancing and also getting vaccinated. Once you're vaccinated, you may be a little bit more at risk than others, but once you're vaccinated, you are probably going to be okay. If you get your boosters, you're going to be okay. You're wearing your mask for the, I don't want to call them names, but the people out there who don't want to get vaccinated, the unvaccinated, they're the ones at risk. And, so if you're wearing your mask, so you won't, that virus that might be in your airway, on your mucous membranes, you breathe, you cough, you sneeze, they're not wearing a mask, they're going to be the ones. That's why you see the death rates and the hospitalizations, the severe illness, 90 plus 98%, 97%, the last figures I saw, those are the ones who are getting sick and dying. When you add in people who get tested positive, that's where they make the arguments. Well, you get vaccinated, you're still going to get the virus. You're not getting sick from it. It's just there on your tissues, on your mucous membranes. You may get a little illness, but you're not going to get severely ill. You're not going to be hospitalized or intubated. So it's better to wear a mask than to be intubated.
Yes. And COVID is a terrible way to die. When you're on that ventilator and they've intubated you and you're on the meds and you can't say nothing, but you're still aware of what's going on and you're struggling to breathe and the ventilator's doing everything for you. And they're coming in and says, well, we're going to say goodbye on this notepad here. And so your families are there and there's nothing that they can do for you. And the only thing you've done in society is eat up a bunch of healthcare expenditures on the end, when they're supporting you with, the dopamines and all the pressors and everything because you are failing, kidneys are gone, and your body is shutting down, and they're turning you, and you can't even clean yourself anymore, and you're just dying. And I'm painting the picture of the non-vaccinated's death. And it is a terrible way to go. And then so we are going to come to the day where, and actually we're probably already there in Florida and Texas, where we have to make the decision on who comes into the ER, who's going to get that ICU bed. And if you're non-vaccinated, I got to give it to a vaccinated person because I have a chance to save them. But that non-vaccinated person, go home and take some soup and Gatorade and see if you survive. Right. And we're going to get to that point in this country. And we're already there, and especially with those two red state governors that are crazy. Yeah. So that's my commentary on that end. So I went into a diatribe there.
No, you're right. And some of the reports that you're seeing right now, or you see kids, young people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and they're, on those laptops and things, talking to their dying parents, saying, "I'm sorry, I should have gotten vaccinated." They're the ones who are bringing it home, getting it infected. So I think a lot of that is going on. And getting back to the kids, because you talked about multi-system organ failure, one of the myths out there was that the vaccine caused the MIS-C, which is multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. And there were reports that the vaccine is causing these kids to die. It's not the vaccine that's causing it. It's COVID that's related to that, getting the illness. And it's rare. I mean, there's, if you look at it, the rate is about 1 out of 100,000. So, and that's another misinformation out there that people were pushing. And, tried to argue on social media one time, but of course, it does not work. It's a tug of war. It's like pulling teeth. It's a losing battle.
Yeah.
As we come to a close, I want to give everybody a chance to have closing comments. And Colonel, we really appreciate your commentary because it's always an educational food for thought for us. So we look forward to that every week. So keep it coming. I just want to say before we give everybody else a chance to have a closing comment, I want to look at the camera and tell, I know we don't have a lot of young people watching, but we have a lot of parents that can pass this on. Keep an eye on what your young children or your teenage children watch, especially when you have rappers out there telling with a big platform of millions of people, or millions of young people, telling them not to wear the mask, and to check out those people. And some of those same people have had health issues themselves, but they're standing up there with the platform that they have, rather than give good advice, is telling people not to wear the mask and to F the vaccine, and if you do that, the vaccine say, okay, well, I'm coming. So parents, just make sure you pass that on to your teenagers that hold these rappers or these artists in high regard over what science is telling us, and make sure we do not listen to them and with the big platform that they have. And I'm disappointed in them when they have an opportunity to save lives with their platform, when they're going out there to giving out information like that and getting applause. It kind of reminds me of Trump doing his thing, people applauding him for doing the wrong thing. So that's my commentary, and I hope that people will take that in and pass it on, and just keep an eye on who your children are watching, and make sure you are the person that they are listening to.
Well, you know what? I'll segue onto that. And as we listen to people, not everybody has your self-interest and will have your back. Especially if you look at 600 and something thousand people that have died, or souls that have gone on, they ain't coming back. The spirit is there, and they're laying down in the cemetery now, and it is going on. and you mentioned Mr. Trump, the same person that got his vaccine back in December before it was, and some of the politicians like Ron Paul and from the state of Kentucky that got theirs before we had a shot to get it, that are saying, don't take it. Ron, the senator from Kentucky, who was talking about he is on the fence about taking what's the new one, the horse tranquilizer, the horse dewormer. Now here he is, an optometrist trying to spread that kind of manure. So saying that, do your own research and listen to credible people, and be wise. Just listen to what your mama said. If your mama said if that fish stinks, it just stinks. And you ain't supposed to put it on the frying pan and cook it and think that grease is going to take care of that stinky old fish that is spoiled. That's how it is. I know. So, but going back, and I went off into this diatribe now, but Dr. Frank, I didn't call you Frankie this time. Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show this day, and thank you for what you've done in the past and all the people and the lives that you saved and you brought up and brought into this world. And thank you for your service too, and being a veteran, a fellow veteran, and that you've tried to keep this country safe from the tyranny that I think there's you and I never thought would be at this point where we have to fight for our democracy now. But thank you for everything.
My pleasure.
Yes.
Dr. Roberts, I just want to say thank you so very much. This was the guy's hour, this hour. But I want you to know that I do appreciate the information that you shared with us on today. And I know you said no, Frankie. However, Ruth Bullock Chandler says, hey, Frankie. So I had to say that, okay? But once again, I want to thank you because as much information as we can get out there to the public, prayerfully we can get more people who will be willing to vaccinate as well as wear their mask when they are in public. And those who are not vaccinated, seeing others who are vaccinated who get the COVID, realize that even though they may get COVID, is not as extensive as it could have been if they had not been vaccinated. So once again, I just want to thank you so very much for coming on board. And thank you for the fact that you have some knowledge of the Truxton community. I appreciate that so very much. But once again, thank you so much, Dr. Roberts, for coming on Portsmouth Coffee Talk on this morning.
My honor.
And we thank everybody for watching Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And Portsmouth Coffee Talk is always here for our voice,
our community,
in our future.
We thank you very much, and God bless you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. God bless.
As well? Yeah. Zoom recording.
So you enjoyed that?